The massive space station rotated slowly against the backdrop of distant stars. Inside its gleaming halls, representatives from dozens of alien worlds gathered for another session of the Galactic Council. The air hummed with the sounds of different languages and the gentle whir of translation devices. Ambassador Hyun sat quietly in the human section, a small area that seemed almost empty compared to the grand displays of other species. The Cavern delegation took up 3 entire sections, with their towering warriors in ceremonial armor. The Althari brought floating holographic displays that showed off their latest technologies. The Wheelish had set up what looked like a small marketplace, eager to make deals with anyone who approached. But the human section was simple. Just a few chairs, a basic communication console, and Hyun himself in a plain, dark suit. "The humans are so boring," whispered a Cavern officer to his companion. 50 years they have been here, and they never do anything interesting." Hyun heard the comment through his translation device but showed no reaction. He had heard similar words countless times before. To the galaxy, humans were the quiet species from a backwater system called Earth. They had been discovered by accident when a Welsh trade ship took a wrong turn through hyperspace and stumbled into human territory. The first meeting between humans and aliens had been surprisingly calm. No wars, no panic, no dramatic scenes. The humans simply said hello, agreed to join the galactic community, and then mostly kept to themselves. They sent small ships for trade, participated in some cultural exchanges, and established a few diplomatic posts. But they always declined military alliances, refused to share much technology, and politely turned down most requests to visit Earth itself. Ambassador Hyun called Council Speaker Vorth, a tall Althari with silver skin that reflected the station's lights. "Does Earth have any comment on the proposed mining rights in the Kepler sector?" Hyun stood slowly. Around the Great Hall, hundreds of alien eyes turned to look at him. He was used to this attention, though he never enjoyed it. "Earth thanks the Council for the opportunity," Hyun said in his careful diplomatic voice. "However, we must decline participation in the Kepler mining project. We have no need for additional resources at this time." A ripple of quiet laughter came from several delegations. The Caverns made no effort to hide their amusement. To them, any species that turned down free wealth was clearly weak and foolish. "Very well," Speaker Vorth said. "The Council notes Earth's position." Hyun sat, back down. Another meeting, another polite refusal. It was all part of the plan. Far from the glittering space station, in a hidden facility built into an asteroid near the edge of human space, Nari watched the council session through a secure connection. Her job was to monitor everything the aliens said and did, especially when they thought no humans were listening. The monitoring station was small but packed with advanced equipment. Banks of computers processed signals from across the galaxy, while powerful sensors tracked ship movements and communication patterns. Nari had been doing this work for 15 years, and she had become very good at reading between the lines. "Same old story," she said to herself as she watched Hyun politely decline another offer. The aliens saw it as proof that humans were unimportant. They had no idea that Earth was actually gathering intelligence on every major military force in the galaxy. Nari pulled up a file on her main screen. It showed detailed information about Cavern battle tactics, weapon specifications, and fleet movements. Another file contained similar data about Althari technology. A third had complete economic reports on the Welsh trade networks. For 50 years, while the aliens thought humans were just sitting quietly in their corner of space, Earth had been learning everything there was to know about galactic civilization. Every diplomatic meeting, every trade negotiation, every casual conversation was carefully recorded and analyzed. But intelligence gathering was only part of what humanity had been doing during those 50 years. Nari opened a different set of files, ones marked with the highest security clearance. These contained reports from Earth's secret research facilities, where human scientists had been working on projects that would shock the galaxy if they ever found out. The breakthrough had come 20 years ago, when Dr. Yuna made a discovery that changed everything. While studying the strange readings from their long-range sensors, She realized that what most species thought of as empty space was actually full of something incredible: dark matter. Other alien civilizations knew dark matter existed, but they treated it like invisible dust that got in the way of their sensors. They never imagined it could be used as a tool. But human scientists had always been curious about things others ignored, and they spent years figuring out how to interact with this hidden layer of reality. The results were beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Nari switched to a live feed from the Sol system showing Earth's moon. To any alien observer, it looked completely normal, but she knew that hidden beneath the lunar surface were construction facilities that had been building humanity's true defense fleet for decades, ships that could bend space around themselves, weapons that fired compressed dark matter at impossible speeds, defense systems that could make entire planets disappear from normal sensors, all of it powered by humanity's secret mastery of forces that other species couldn't even detect. Back on the council station, the session was ending for the day. Hyun gathered his simple briefcase and prepared to return to his small quarters. As he walked through the corridors, he passed groups of alien diplomats discussing their plans and ambitions. "The caverns are getting more aggressive," he heard an Althari diplomat say to a Welsh trader. "They've been expanding their territory again, and now they're looking towards some of the smaller systems. As long as they leave the trade routes alone, I don't care what they do," the Walish replied. "There's money to be made regardless of who's in charge." Hyun kept walking, but he made a mental note of the conversation. The caverns had been growing, more bold lately, and intelligence reports suggested they were planning something big, not that it mattered much to Earth's plans. In his quarters, Hyun activated his secure communication system and sent his daily report back to Earth. It was mostly routine information, but he included the comments about cavern expansion. Earth's leaders needed to know about any potential threats, even though humanity was more than ready to deal with them. As he prepared for sleep, Hyun thought about the strange position he held. To the aliens, he was the representative of a weak, unimportant species that posed no threat to anyone. They saw him as harmless, maybe even pitiful. They had no idea that Earth could destroy any of their civilizations without breaking a sweat. The quiet humans they ignored and sometimes mocked had built the most powerful military force the galaxy had ever seen. But that was exactly how humanity wanted it. For now, the plan was simple: stay quiet, stay hidden, and be ready for anything. Let the aliens think what they wanted to think. Let them make their deals and fight their little wars and expand their empires. As long as they left Earth alone, humanity would remain the friendly, boring species that kept to itself. But if anyone ever threatened Earth or its people, they would discover that the quiet species had been preparing for war since the day they first met the galaxy. And when that day came, the universe would learn that humanity's greatest strength had always been their ability to survive and adapt. The galaxy thought it knew humans. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The message arrived on a Tuesday morning, transmitted across the galaxy on all official channels. It was short, direct, and delivered with the kind of cold authority that the Kavran Empire was famous for. To the human government of Earth, the Chiu Kavran Empire hereby claims the Sol system and all surrounding territories for strategic military purposes. You have 7 standard galactic days to submit to imperial rule and relocate your population to designated areas. Failure to comply will result in immediate pacification of your world. This is not a negotiation. Admiral Tejo read the message, again from the bridge of his massive flagship, the Destroyer of Worlds. Around him, the Kavran 7th Fleet stretched across space like a forest of metal trees. 12 enormous dreadnoughts formed the core of his force, each one capable of cracking a planet's surface. 30 heavy cruisers provided support, while over 100 smaller ships handled everything from reconnaissance to supply duties. It was more than enough firepower to handle any reasonable resistance. In fact, it was probably more ships than they actually needed for such a simple operation. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a response from the human diplomat on Council Station Gamma. Already?" Taiho was mildly surprised. Most species took at least a few days to discuss terms when facing a cavern ultimatum. What do they say? The message is very short, sir. It just says, Earth declines the cavern ultimatum. That's all. Tai-Ho stared at the communications display for a moment, then began to laugh. It was a deep rumbling sound that filled the bridge. His officers joined in, though some of them seemed confused by the human response. They decline? Tai-Ho said when he stopped laughing. Just like that, no begging, no offers to negotiate, no promises of tribute? That appears to be correct, sir. Just those 5 words. Incredible, Tai-Ho said, shaking his massive head. These humans really have no idea what they're facing, do they? Well, we gave them a chance to surrender peacefully. Begin the advance to their system. The Cavern 7th Fleet began its journey toward human space with the confidence that came from never having lost a battle. They had conquered dozens of worlds using this same approach. First came the ultimatum, then a brief period for the enemy to realize they had no choice, followed by a quick and decisive military action that left no room for doubt about who was in charge. It was a system that worked because it was based on simple logic. The Cavern Empire had the biggest ships, the most weapons, and the longest list of victories in galactic history. When they said surrender or be destroyed, smart species chose surrender. But intelligence reports suggested the humans weren't particularly smart. On Earth, Defense Minister So Min sat in the secure conference room beneath the Global Defense Headquarters in Geneva. The room had no windows and was shielded from every form of electronic surveillance known to galactic science. Around the table sat the most important military leaders in human space. 7 days, General Kyung said, looking at the cavern message on his tablet. They're not giving us much time to think about it. They don't expect us to think about it, Soman replied. They expect us to panic and surrender before their fleet arrives. That's how they've always done business. How long until they reach our outer system? Asked Admiral Jisoo, commander of Earth's conventional space forces. At their current speed, approximately 6 days, Kyung answered. They're not even trying to hide their approach. They want us to see them coming. Soman nodded. She had expected something like this eventually. The caverns had been expanding aggressively for years, and Earth's system contained one of the most valuable hyperspace junctions in this region of the galaxy. It was inevitable that someone would try to take it from them. What the caverns didn't know was that humanity had been preparing for this exact scenario since the day they joined the galactic community. General Kyung, Somin said formally, please brief the Committee on Operation Dark Matter. Kyung stood and activated the room's main display screen. What appeared looked like technical specifications for ships and weapons, but not like anything the other galactic powers had ever built. For 50 years, Kyung began, our scientists have been developing technology based on our understanding of dark matter manipulation. While other species focused on conventional energy and matter, we learned to work with the hidden structure of space itself. Images of sleek, angular ships appeared on the screen. They looked almost organic, as if they had been grown rather than built. These vessels exist partially outside normal spacetime, Kyung continued. They can phase shift to avoid detection, manipulate gravitational fields for both propulsion and weapons, and strike targets using compressed dark matter projectiles that are essentially invisible to conventional sensors. How many ships do we have? Asked Admiral Jisoo. Currently 47 fully operational dark matter warships with more coming online each week. But for this operation we won't need all of them. Soman looked around the table. She could see the mixture of excitement and nervousness on the faces of her colleagues. They had all known about the secret shipbuilding program, but seeing the full capabilities laid out was still impressive. Rules of engagement? She asked. Complete destruction of the Cavern fleet, Kyung said without hesitation. No survivors, no witnesses, no evidence left behind. We want the galaxy to know the caverns disappeared, but we don't want them to know how or why. That seems harsh, Admiral Jisoo commented. The caverns gave us 7 days to abandon our homeworld, Soman replied. I think our response is perfectly reasonable. Meanwhile, on the council station, Ambassador Hyun was having a different kind of meeting. He had been called to Speaker Vorth's private office, a sign that the galactic leadership was concerned about the situation developing between Earth and the Cavern Empire. "Ambassador," Speaker Vorth said as Hyun took a seat across from the tall Altari, "the Council has received notification of the Cavern ultimatum to your world. This is unfortunate." "Earth appreciates the Council's concern," Hyun replied diplomatically. "Perhaps we can help mediate this situation," Speaker Vorth continued. "The Caverns are sometimes willing to negotiate if approached through proper channels." "That's very kind of you," Hyun said. "But Earth has already given the Caverns our..." Response: "Yes, I heard about your message. Very direct." Speaker Vorth's silver skin seemed to shimmer with what might have been concern. "Ambassador, I hope you understand the situation your world is facing. The Cavern's 7th Fleet has never been defeated. Admiral Taiho has conquered systems with populations in the billions." "I'm sure he has," Hyun said calmly. "Your world's defensive capabilities are unknown to us," Speaker Vorth pressed. "But surely you realize that no single system can stand against a full Cavern battle fleet." Hyun was quiet for a moment, considering his response. He had been instructed to maintain Earth's image as a weak, harmless species for as long as possible. But he also needed to make sure the galactic community understood that humanity's decisions were final. "Speaker Vorth," he said finally, "Earth has made its position clear. We have no desire for conflict, but we will defend our territory if necessary." "With respect, Ambassador, what exactly will you defend it with?" Hyun smiled slightly. It was the first emotion he had shown during the entire conversation. "You'll find out soon enough." Back in space, Admiral Taiho was reviewing tactical plans with his senior officers. The approach to the human system was proceeding smoothly, and his scouts had not detected any significant defensive preparations. "Intelligence reports suggest they have a small orbital defense platform and maybe 24 patrol ships," his tactical officer reported. "Nothing that would pose a threat to our main fleet." "Any sign of allies coming to help them?" Taiho asked. "No, sir. It appears the humans are facing us alone." Taiho nodded. It was what he had expected. The humans had no real friends in the galactic community, and no one was going to risk Cavern anger by interfering in this operation. "Maintain current course and speed," he ordered. "We'll arrive in their outer system right on schedule. Make sure all weapon systems are ready for immediate deployment." "Yes, sir. Should we prepare for extended combat operations?" Taiho looked out at the stars ahead of them, somewhere among which lay the insignificant little world called Earth. "I don't think that will be necessary," he said. Captain Jinho stood on the bridge of the Soul's Pride, watching the Cavern fleet approach through his ship's sensors. The enemy formation was impressive. 12 massive dreadnoughts surrounded by dozens of smaller vessels, all moving with the confident precision of a military force that had never known defeat. "Distance to target?" he asked his tactical officer. 40,000 kilometers and closing, sir. The Caverns are maintaining battle formation. Any response to our warning signals?" "They're ignoring us completely, Captain. They probably don't even see us as a threat." Jinho nodded. That was exactly what they had hoped for. To the Cavern sensors, the Soul's Pride looked like nothing more than a small patrol ship, barely worth their attention. They had no idea they were looking at humanity's most advanced warship. "Signal from Fleet Command, sir," the communications officer reported. "Admiral Taiho is demanding our immediate surrender." "Send our response," Jinho said calmly. The message was simple. "This is Captain Jinho of the Earth Defense Force. You have entered human space without permission. Turn back, now or face the consequences." On the Cavern flagship, Admiral Taiho read the human response with amusement. Through his bridge's main screen, he could see the tiny human ship positioned between his massive fleet and the inner system. "One ship," he said to his officers. "They sent one ship to stop us. Should we destroy it, sir?" His weapons officer asked. "Not yet. Let's see what kind of show they put on first. It might be entertaining." Taiho activated his communication system and broadcast on all frequencies. "Human vessel, you are outnumbered 143 to 1. Stand down immediately and prepare to be boarded, or we will open fire." The response came back within seconds. "Negative. Final warning. Leave human space now. Taiho's laughter boomed across the bridge. Did you hear that? Final warning. From one ship against an entire fleet. He wiped tears from his eyes. These humans are either insane or incredibly brave. Either way, they're about to be dead. All ships target the human vessel and fire. The combined firepower of the Cavern 7th Fleet lit up space like a miniature star. Energy beams, plasma missiles, and kinetic projectiles converged on the position where the Soul's Pride had been floating. But when the weapon's fire reached its target, there was nothing there. Target has disappeared from sensors, reported the Cavern tactical officer, his voice confused. Disappeared? Ships don't just disappear. Find it. Sir, I'm reading massive gravitational distortions throughout the fleet formation. Something is interfering with our sensors. Admiral Taiho felt his first moment of concern. In 40 years of military service, he had never seen anything like this. All ships, defensive formation, full sensor sweep. But it was too late. Captain, Jinho watched the Cavern fleet through his ship's true sensors, which could see through the dark matter distortions that made his vessel invisible to conventional detection. The enemy ships were moving into a tighter defensive formation, exactly as human tactical computers had predicted they would. Phase shift complete, his helmsman reported. We're operating in dark matter space. Target acquisition, all enemy. Vessels are marked and locked, Captain. Jinho looked at the tactical display showing the positions of every ship in the Cavern fleet. The dark matter weapon systems had perfect targeting solutions on all of them. Fire, he said quietly. The Soul's Pride fired its main weapons once. Dark matter projectiles, invisible to normal sensors and moving at near light speed, struck 12 separate targets simultaneously. The Cavern dreadnoughts didn't explode in the traditional sense. They simply ceased to exist as their molecular structure was disrupted by compressed dark matter. 12 dreadnoughts eliminated, the tactical officer reported. Cruiser targets? Locked and ready, sir. Fire. The second salvo took out 30 heavy cruisers in the span of 3 seconds. The remaining Cavern ships began firing wildly in all directions, their crews panicking as their comrades vanished without any visible cause. Admiral Taiho's flagship is attempting to retreat, the helmsman reported. Pursue and eliminate, Jinho ordered. The Soul's Pride phased back into normal space directly behind the fleeing Cavern flagship. For just a moment, Admiral Taiho's sensors detected the human ship, giving the Cavern commander his first and last look at the vessel that had destroyed his entire fleet. The final shot from the Soul's Pride was different from the others. Instead of simply destroying the enemy ship, it created a small gravitational implosion that pulled the flagship and all its escape pods into a compressed point of space-time that then collapsed in on itself. Total engagement time, 17 minutes. Cavern casualties, approximately 12,000 officers and crew. Human casualties, 0. All targets eliminated, Captain, the tactical officer reported. Any debris? Negative, sir. The gravitational weapons left no trace of the enemy vessels. Captain, Jinho nodded with satisfaction. It had gone exactly as planned. Signal Fleet Command, operation complete, no survivors. In the hidden monitoring station at the edge of human space, Nari watched her screens with mixed feelings. The tactical data from the battle was impressive. Humanity's dark matter weapons had performed even better than expected. But she also felt a strange sadness at the total destruction of the Cavern force. Not one escape pod, she murmured to herself. Not one distress signal. It had been necessary, she knew. The plan required complete secrecy about human capabilities. If even one Cavern had survived to report back, it would have compromised everything Earth was working toward. But still, 12,000 lives had just ended in 17 minutes, and the galaxy would never know what had happened to them. Nari's computers were already detecting the reactions from across galactic space. Communication networks were buzzing with reports about the missing Cavern fleet. Admiral Taiho had been scheduled to report his progress every 6 hours, and when the first scheduled report failed to arrive, Cavern High Command had immediately tried to contact him. When the second scheduled report also failed to arrive, they had sent a probe ship to investigate. The probe had found nothing, no debris, no energy signatures, no trace that the 7th Fleet had ever existed. Status report from Earth Defense Command. Came a message on Nari's secure channel. Phase 1 of Operation Dark Matter has been completed successfully. Initiate Phase 2 protocols. Nari began entering commands into her monitoring systems. Phase 2 involved making sure the galaxy understood that something had happened in human space, without letting them know exactly what that something was. She activated a series of communication relays that began broadcasting on various alien frequencies. The messages were fragments, partial distress signals that cut off abruptly, sensor, readings that showed massive energy discharges before going silent. To anyone monitoring galactic communications, it would look like there had been a major battle in the Sol system. What they wouldn't be able to figure out was who had won. On Earth, General Kyung was briefing Defense Minister Soman on the results of the engagement. Complete success, he reported. Captain Jinho's performance exceeded all expectations. The dark matter weapon systems worked perfectly, and there were no technical problems with the phase shift capabilities. Any sign that the caverns detected our true capabilities? Soman asked. None. As far as their sensors were concerned, their ships were destroyed by some kind of unknown gravitational phenomenon. Even if they had managed to get a message out, they wouldn't have been able to describe what they were fighting, Omin nodded. And the galactic response? Confusion, mostly. The Cavern Empire is demanding answers about their missing fleet, but nobody has any to give them. The other major powers are staying out of it for now, but they're all increasing their intelligence-gathering efforts in this region. Let them investigate, Soman said. They won't find anything we don't want them to find. Meanwhile, on the council station, Ambassador Hyon was attending an emergency session called to discuss the situation in human space. The Great Hall buzzed with worried conversations as representatives from across the galaxy tried to make sense of what had happened. The Cavern's 7th Fleet has completely disappeared, Speaker Vorth announced to the assembly. Their last known position was en route to the Sol system. All attempts to make contact have failed. Several alien delegates began speaking at once, their voices creating a chaos of different languages and concerns. Hyon sat quietly in his section, showing no emotion. Ambassador Hyon, Speaker Vorth called out. Does Earth have any information about the fate of the Cavran fleet? Hyon stood slowly, looking around at all the alien faces turned toward him. He could see fear in some of them, curiosity in others, and in a few cases something that looked almost like respect. Earth is aware that a Cavran military force entered our territory without permission, he said in his calm diplomatic voice. We asked them to leave. They declined our request. And? Prompted Speaker Vorth. And they are no longer in our territory. The simple statement sent a ripple of shocked whispers through the assembly. Hyon had just told the entire Galactic Council that humanity had somehow dealt with the most powerful fleet in known space. He sat back down without offering any further explanation, leaving the galaxy to wonder exactly what the quiet species from Earth had done to Admiral Taiho and his ships. The answer, of course, was that humanity had given the galaxy its first taste of what real power. The news spread through the galaxy like a virus, jumping from system to system along the hyperspace communication networks. Admiral Taiho was missing. The entire Cavran 7th Fleet had vanished without a trace near the human system of Sol. At first, many refused to believe it. The Cavern military was the most powerful force in known space. Their fleets had conquered dozens of worlds and never lost a major engagement. The idea that they could simply disappear was unthinkable. But as days passed without any word from the missing ships, the galactic community began to accept the impossible truth. Something had happened to the caverns in human space, and nobody knew what. The Altari Confederacy was the first major power to take action. Their leadership council met in emergency session and decided to send reconnaissance probes to investigate the situation. They chose Commander Yusuf of the Altari Science Division to lead the mission, giving him access to their most advanced sensor technology. The probes need to determine what happened to the Cavran fleet, Yusuf's orders stated. Was it destroyed by human forces, or did some other factor cause their disappearance? The Confederacy requires accurate intelligence about the military capabilities of the human species. Commander Youssef launched his probe fleet from a base station 3 systems away from human space. 12 unmanned vessels, each equipped with the most sophisticated detection equipment the Althari possessed, began their journey toward the Sol system. They never made it past the outer edge of human territory. Commander Minho of the Earth Defense Force intercepted the Althari probes in the empty space between star systems, well outside the range of normal sensors. His squadron consisted of 3 dark matter interceptors, small ships designed specifically for this kind of mission. 12 contacts approaching from Vector 77 Mark IV, his sensor operator reported. Configuration matches Althari. Reconnaissance probes. Any weapon signatures? Negative, sir. They appear to be purely scientific vessels. Minho studied the tactical display. The Althari probes were moving in a standard search pattern, using active sensors to scan everything in their path. Their technology was impressive by galactic standards, but they were still operating in normal space-time. Take us into phase. Shift, Minho ordered. The 3 human ships disappeared from conventional sensors as they shifted partially into dark matter space. From this position, they could observe and interact with normal matter while remaining completely invisible to alien detection systems. The Althari probes continued their approach, unaware that they were being watched. Their sensors swept across the area where the human ships were positioned but detected nothing unusual. Position for intercept, Minho commanded. His ships moved into position around the probe formation. The plan was to disable the alien vessels without destroying them, then send them back with a clear message that human space was off limits. Sir, his tactical officer said, I'm reading some unusual energy patterns from the lead probe. Minho looked at his displays. The Althari had equipped their probes with gravitational sensors far more advanced than anything else in the galaxy. While they still couldn't detect the human ships directly, they were picking up the gravitational distortions caused by dark matter manipulation. They know something is here, Minho realized. They just don't know what. On the lead Althari probe, automated systems were recording massive gravitational anomalies that defied all known physics. The readings suggested the presence of objects with enormous mass, but visual and electromagnetic sensors detected nothing. The probe's artificial intelligence began calculating possible explanations. Black holes could cause similar gravitational effects, but there were no black holes in this region of space. Neutron stars were another possibility, but they would be clearly visible to the probe's sensors. The only remaining explanation was technology, something that could manipulate gravitational fields in ways the Althari had never seen before. The probe transmitted its findings back to Commander Youssef's base station, along with a priority alert indicating the discovery of unknown alien technology. Fascinating, Youssef said as he reviewed the data. The gravitational readings are off the charts, but there's nothing visible causing them. This suggests the humans have developed some form of stealth technology based on gravitational manipulation. He immediately ordered all probes to begin detailed scans of the area, hoping to gather more information about this mysterious human capability. But before the probes could complete their scans, something else happened. Sir, Minho's communications officer reported, we're receiving a transmission from the Althari base station. They're ordering the probes to conduct intensive scans of our position. They're getting too close to the truth, Minho decided. Initiate contact protocol. The 3 human ships phased back into normal space, appearing suddenly around the Althari probe formation. For the first time in their history, alien vessels were getting a direct look at humanity's true technology. The human ships were unlike anything in the galactic database. Their hulls seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, making them appear as dark shadows against the stars. Their shapes were organic and flowing, as if they had grown rather than been built. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to bend space around themselves, creating visual distortions that hurt to look at. The Althari probe's computers struggled to analyze what they were seeing. Their sensors detected massive gravitational fields, impossible energy readings, and structural materials that didn't match any known elements. Commander Minho opened a communication channel to the probes. Althari vessels. His voice came through their receivers with perfect clarity. You have entered human territory without authorization. Your mission here is complete. Return to your base and inform your commanders that human space is now a restricted zone. Commander Yusuf, monitoring the situation from his base station, watched in amazement as his probes transmitted images of the human ships. Even through the distorted video, he could see that this technology was far beyond anything the galaxy had ever encountered. How are they doing this? He whispered to himself. Those gravitational fields should be impossible to generate with ships that size. He activated his communication system and tried to contact the human vessels directly. Human ships, this is Commander Yusuf of the Althari Confederacy. We are conducting peaceful scientific research. We have no hostile intentions. Your intentions are noted, Commander Minho replied. However, your presence here is not authorized. You will return to your territory immediately. We simply wish to understand what happened to the Cavern fleet. Perhaps we can arrange some form of cultural exchange. Negative. Return to your territory. Now. Or we will escort you out. Yusuf looked at his tactical displays. His probes were fast and well defended, but they were clearly no match for whatever technology the humans possessed. The smart thing to do would be to retreat and report his findings to Althari Command. But scientific curiosity overrode common sense. Continue scanning, he ordered his probes. Get as much data as possible about those ships. The response was immediate. The human vessels moved with impossible speed and precision, using some form of propulsion that left no visible exhaust or energy signature. In seconds, they had surrounded all 12 Althari probes. Your vessels are now disabled, Minho announced calmly. All weapons and sensor systems are offline. You have 60 seconds to begin your return journey before we take additional measures. On his base station, Commander Yusuf watched helplessly as his probe fleet's systems shut down one by one. Whatever the humans had done, it had completely neutralized his most advanced technology without causing any apparent damage. How? He said aloud. How are they doing this? The answer came from his chief science officer. Sir, I think they're manipulating dark matter. The gravitational readings suggest they've found a way to interact with the hidden mass of the universe. That's impossible. Dark matter is undetectable and non-interactive by definition. Apparently not for the humans. 58 seconds later, the Althari probes found their systems coming back online. Commander Minho's voice came through their communication systems one final time. You may now return to your territory. Any future unauthorized incursions into human space will be met with less tolerance. The human ships faded from normal space as suddenly as they had appeared, leaving the Althari probes alone among the stars. Commander Yusuf ordered an immediate retreat. As his probes began their journey back to Althari space, he reviewed the incredible data they had gathered. The readings showed technology that shouldn't exist, ships that operated on principles unknown to galactic science, and capabilities that made humanity potentially the most powerful force in known space. But perhaps most disturbing of all was the humans' restraint. They could have easily destroyed his entire probe fleet, but instead they had simply demonstrated their superiority and sent him home with a warning. That suggested a level of confidence and control that was even more frightening than raw power. Back on Earth, Dr. Una was reviewing the encounter data in her secure laboratory deep beneath the Antarctic ice. The meeting with the Althari probes had gone exactly as predicted by her computer models. The aliens are beginning to understand that we have capability. The meeting took place on a neutral station in the Rigel system, far from the territories of any major power. Representatives from the 3 greatest civilizations in the galaxy sat around a circular table, each one struggling with the same impossible problem. The humans had to be stopped. We cannot allow this situation to continue, declared General Vex of the Cavern Empire, his scarred face showing the anger that all Caverns felt about their missing fleet. The humans have committed an act of war against our people. They must be punished. Agreed, said Admiral Chen of the Althari Confederacy. But we must be realistic about what we're facing. My probe mission revealed technology far beyond our current understanding. A conventional military response may not be sufficient. The humans are disrupting trade throughout this entire region, added Merchant Prince Kalo of the Whalish Trade Union. My shipping lines are losing millions of credits because captains refuse to fly anywhere near their space. This cannot be tolerated. For the first time in galactic history, the three major powers were forming a military alliance against a common enemy. The Caverns would provide raw firepower, the Althari would contribute their advanced technology, and the Whalish would handle logistics and intelligence. How many ships can we bring to bear? General Vex asked. Admiral Chen consulted his tactical display. The Althari Confederacy can contribute 400 vessels, including our newest dreadnoughts. The Cavern Empire will provide 800 ships, General Vex stated proudly, including the 3rd, 5th, and 9th battle fleets. The Whalish Trade Union has 600 armed merchant vessels and escort ships available, Merchant Prince Kalo added. They may not be military grade, but they carry significant firepower. 1,800 ships total, Admiral Chen calculated, the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. The plan was simple. The combined armada would jump into human space in overwhelming force, demonstrate their superior numbers, and demand immediate surrender. If the humans refused, they would face the concentrated firepower of 3 civilizations acting as one. What could possibly go wrong? Fleet Marshal Yunho of the Althari Navy was chosen to command the Grand Alliance fleet. He was an experienced officer who had won battles against pirates and rebels throughout the Outer Rim. More importantly, he was one of the few beings the 3 allied races all trusted. This is not a mission of conquest, he reminded his officers as the massive fleet assembled at the staging area. We are here to neutralize a threat to galactic stability. The humans will be given every opportunity to surrender peacefully. The fleet that gathered in the empty space between systems was a sight to behold. Cavern battleships with their brutal, angular designs, Althari vessels gleaming with polished metal and advanced sensor arrays, Whalish ships that looked more like flying cities than military vessels. Together, they represented the combined might of galactic civilization. Intelligence reports suggested the humans had no more than 50 vessels of their own, and most of those appeared to be converted civilian ships. Even accounting for their mysterious technology, the Grand Alliance enjoyed overwhelming numerical superiority. All ships report ready, Fleet Marshal Yunho's communications officer announced. Begin the advance to human space, Yunho ordered. The journey took 6 days. As they traveled, scout ships ranged ahead to gather intelligence about human defensive preparations. What they found confused them. Sir, the intelligence officer reported, our scouts detect minimal activity in the human system. There are no major fleet movements, no defensive formations, nothing to suggest they're preparing for our arrival. Perhaps they're planning to surrender, suggested the tactical officer. Or perhaps they're more confident than they should be, Fleet Marshal Yunho said grimly. When the Grand Alliance fleet finally reached the edge of human space, they spread out in a formation that stretched across millions of kilometers. 1,800 warships arranged in perfect battle order, their weapons charged and ready, and waiting for them was a single human vessel. Captain Isol stood on the bridge of the Incheon Resolve, watching the massive alien fleet deploy against her. The ship's sensors were tracking every enemy vessel, analyzing their weapon systems and calculating optimal targeting solutions. That's a lot of ships, her tactical officer observed. Not really, Isol replied calmly. It's the same problem, as always, just with bigger numbers. She activated the communication system and broadcast on all frequencies. Alien vessels, you have entered human territory. This is your final warning to withdraw. On his flagship, Fleet Marshal Yunho read the human message with disbelief. 1 ship, he said to his officers. They sent 1 ship against our entire fleet. Should we destroy it immediately? Asked his weapons officer. No. Let's see what they have to say first. Yunho opened a channel to the human vessel. Human ship, I am Fleet Marshal Yunho of the Grand Alliance fleet. You are outnumbered 1,800 to 1. Surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded. The response came back instantly. Negative. Leave now or face destruction. Yunho felt his temper rising. The arrogance of these humans was beyond belief. You are facing the combined might of 3 civilizations. Your one ship cannot possibly. You have been warned. The human captain interrupted. Last chance to withdraw. All ships, open fire. Destroy that vessel. The combined firepower of 1,800 warships lit up space, like a newborn star. Energy beams, plasma missiles, kinetic projectiles, and exotic weapons converged on the position of the Incheon Resolve. But just like with the Kavran 7th Fleet, when the weapons fire reached its target, there was nothing there. Where did it go? Yunho demanded. Sir, I'm reading massive gravitational distortions throughout our formation, the sensor officer reported. Something is affecting local space-time. Captain Isol watched the alien fleet through her ship's dark matter sensors. Their vessels were packed together in a tight formation, exactly as human tactical computers had predicted they would be. They were thinking like conventional military commanders, trying to concentrate their firepower for maximum effect. They didn't understand that in dark matter space, traditional tactics were meaningless. Phase shift complete, her helmsman reported. We're operating in full dark matter mode. Target the command ships first, Isol ordered. The Incheon Resolve didn't fire at the enemy ships. Instead, it fired at the fabric of space itself. Dark matter charges detonated in carefully calculated patterns around the Grand Alliance fleet, creating gravitational shears that tore holes in the structure of reality. Space began to fold and twist in ways that violated every law of physics the aliens understood. Fleet Marshal Yunho watched in horror as reality itself became a weapon. Ships didn't explode. They simply ceased to exist as the space they occupied was compressed into nothing. Entire squadrons disappeared as gravitational waves ripped through the fleet formation. Retreat, he ordered. All ships, emergency jump. But it was too late. The gravitational distortions were interfering with hyperspace navigation. Ships that tried to jump found themselves torn apart as they entered the unstable spacetime around them. Captain Isol moved the Incheon Resolve through the chaos like a ghost, appearing just long enough to fire another barrage before fading back into dark matter space. Each shot created new gravitational anomalies that claimed dozens of enemy vessels. The battle lasted 47 minutes. When it was over, fewer than 200 ships from the Grand Alliance fleet remained intact, and most of those were too damaged to fight. Fleet Marshal Yunho found himself on one of the surviving vessels, staring at tactical displays that showed the impossible truth. The largest military force in galactic history had been destroyed by a single human ship. How? He whispered. How is this possible? His science officer, one of the few who had survived the destruction of the flagship, provided the answer. Sir, I believe they've learned to weaponize dark matter. They're not just manipulating gravity. They're using the hidden structure of the universe as a weapon. That's impossible. So was everything else we just witnessed, Captain Isol broadcast. One final message to the surviving alien ships. You have seen what happens when you threaten human space. Return to your territories and tell your leaders that Earth desires only peace. But we will defend ourselves with whatever force is necessary. The surviving ships of the Grand Alliance fleet limped back to their home territories, carrying news that would shake the galaxy to its core. The quiet species from Earth had just demonstrated that they possessed power beyond anything previously imagined. But more disturbing than their technology was their restraint. They could have destroyed every ship in the enemy fleet, but instead they had allowed survivors to escape. That meant they wanted the galaxy to know what had happened here. They wanted the message to spread. On Earth, General Kyung was briefing the Defense Council on the results of the engagement. Captain Isol performed flawlessly, he reported. The gravitational weapons exceeded all expectations, and our intelligence gathering was comprehensive. Casualties? Asked Defense Minister Soman. 0 human losses. Enemy casualties are estimated at approximately 2 million personnel. And the survivors? They were allowed to escape as planned. By now, word of the battle should be spreading. throughout their territories. Dr. Yunha reviewed the technical data from the engagement. The dark matter manipulation system 6 months after the destruction of the Grand Alliance fleet, the galaxy had become a very different place. Trade routes that had carried ships and goods between civilizations for centuries now sat empty. Diplomatic channels that had buzzed with constant communication had gone quiet. The great powers that had once competed for influence and territory now huddled in their own space, afraid to venture too far from home. Ambassador Hyan stood at the podium in the Galactic Council chambers, looking out at an audience much smaller than usual. Many species had simply stopped attending council sessions, preferring to stay safely in their own systems rather than risk traveling through space that might be too close to human territory. Those who did attend watched him with a mixture of fear, respect, and curiosity. The quiet diplomat who had sat in the same small section for 50 years was now the representative of the most powerful military force in known space. Members of the Galactic Council, Hyan began, his voice as calm and diplomatic as it had always been. I come before you today to address the concerns that have arisen in recent months regarding humanity's place in the galactic community. The chamber was so quiet that the hum of the life support system seemed loud. Every being present was hanging on his words. Earth has no desire for conquest or expansion, Jan continued. We have no interest in controlling trade routes, claiming new territories, or imposing our will on other species. We ask only to be left in peace to develop our civilization as we see fit. General Vex of the Cavern Empire, one of the few survivors of the recent battles, stood up from his section. What about our missing fleets? He demanded. What about the thousands of our people who disappeared in your space? Jan looked at him with the same calm expression he had always shown. The Cavern Empire issued an ultimatum demanding that Earth surrender its territory and relocate its population. When this ultimatum was rejected, Admiral Taiho led a military force into human space with the stated intention of conquering our world. We defended ourselves. You destroyed an entire fleet. We defended ourselves, Jan repeated simply. Fleet Marshal Yunho, also among the survivors, stood next. And the Grand Alliance fleet? We came seeking answers about what happened to the caverns, and you nearly wiped us out as well. You brought 1,800 warships into human territory, Jan replied. Did you truly expect us to interpret that as a peaceful mission? The chamber erupted in angry voices from multiple delegations. Accusations flew back and forth about aggressive actions, mysterious weapons, and the changed balance of power in the galaxy. But through it all, Jan stood quietly at the podium, waiting for the noise to die down. When silence finally returned, he spoke again. Humanity has made its position clear through our actions. Human space is now a sovereign zone, protected by our defensive capabilities. We will not interfere with the affairs of other species, and we expect the same courtesy in return. And if we don't agree to these terms? Asked Merchant Prince Kalo. Jan smiled slightly, the first emotion he had, shown during the entire speech. Then you are welcome to test our resolve again, though I would suggest reviewing the results of previous attempts before making that decision. Speaker Vorth of the Althari called for order in the chamber. Ambassador Hyun, he said formally, the Council requires more information about your species' capabilities. The weapons you have demonstrated appear to violate several fundamental laws of physics. How is this possible? I'm not a scientist, Hyun replied diplomatically. But I can tell you that humanity has spent the last 50 years developing technologies based on our understanding of dark matter and its interaction with normal spacetime. We have learned to work with forces that other species have not yet discovered. Dark matter? Speaker Vorth looked confused. But dark matter is undetectable and non-interactive. To most species, yes. But human scientists have found ways to perceive and manipulate it. This has given us access to capabilities that appear impossible when viewed through conventional physics. The explanation was simple and completely accurate, but it told the aliens nothing useful about how humanity's technology actually worked. It was exactly the kind of diplomatic non-answer that Hyun had perfected over decades of practice. The Council demands a full disclosure of your military capabilities. General Vex said angrily. "The Cavern Empire is hardly in a position to make demands," Hyan replied quietly. "But I will say this. What you have witnessed so far represents a fraction of our true defensive potential. Earth has been preparing for conflict since the day we joined the galactic community, and our preparations are now complete." He paused to let that statement sink in, then continued. "However, I want to emphasize that humanity has no aggressive intentions toward any species. We built these defenses because we knew that eventually someone would try to take our territory or threaten our people. We were correct in that assumption." "So what happens now?" Speaker Vorth asked. "Now we return to the way things were before these recent conflicts," Hyun said. "Earth will continue to participate in the galactic community on our own terms. We will honor our existing agreements and treaties. We will maintain diplomatic relations with any species that wishes to have them. But human space will remain off limits to military forces, and any future aggression will be met with appropriate force." The message was clear. Humanity was offering the galaxy a choice. Leave Earth alone, and things could go back to normal, or continue to test human patience and face the consequences. Most species chose to leave Earth alone. Within weeks of Hyan's speech, a new pattern emerged across the galaxy. Trade ships began, altering their routes to avoid human space entirely. Military patrols that had once ranged throughout the region now stopped at the boundaries of human territory. Exploration missions that had planned to survey systems near Earth were quietly canceled. The area around the Sol system became known as the Silent Zone, a region of space where normal galactic traffic simply did not go. On Earth, General Kyung was overseeing the final stages of the dark matter defense grid, a network of installations that would make human space essentially impregnable. Hidden bases throughout the Sol system housed weapons platforms that could strike targets anywhere in local space, while sensor networks monitored every approach to Earth. "Status report," he asked his operations officer. "All primary installations are online and fully operational. Secondary facilities are at 93% completion. The outer perimeter network will be finished within 30 days. Any signs of renewed alien military activity?" "Negative, sir. Intelligence reports suggest all major powers have pulled their fleets back to defensive positions in their own territories. There's been a significant reduction in military activity throughout this entire region of the galaxy." General Kyung nodded with satisfaction. The strategy was working perfectly. By demonstrating overwhelming force and then exercising restraint, humanity had achieved something remarkable. They had convinced the galaxy to leave them alone without having to conquer or destroy anyone. Well, mostly without having to destroy anyone. In her laboratory deep beneath the Antarctic ice, Dr. Yuna was continuing her research into dark matter manipulation. The recent battles had provided valuable data about the practical applications of her theories, but she was already working on even more advanced concepts. "The gravitational weapons are just the beginning," she explained to a group of visiting scientists. "We're learning that dark matter isn't just invisible mass, it's access to entire dimensions of reality that exist parallel to our own." She activated a holographic display showing her latest research. "By manipulating the interface between normal matter and dark matter, we can theoretically affect space-time at the quantum level. This could lead to technologies that make our current capabilities look primitive by comparison." "Such as?" asked one of the scientists. "Time manipulation, dimensional travel, the ability to exist in multiple layers of reality simultaneously, the complete control of fundamental forces." The implications were staggering. Humanity wasn't just the most powerful military force in the galaxy. They were potentially evolving beyond anything other species could comprehend. But perhaps the most important development was taking place not in laboratories or military installations, but in the ordinary lives of human beings throughout Earth's territory. For the first time in centuries, humanity felt truly safe. The constant worry about alien invasion or conquest had been replaced by confident security. Earth's children were growing up in a universe where their species was no longer the weak newcomer struggling to find its place among advanced civilizations. They were the apex predator, and everyone else knew it. Captain Isul, now promoted to Admiral, after her single-handed destruction of the Grand Alliance fleet, stood on the observation deck of the new orbital defense platform above Earth. Through the transparent aluminum windows, she could see the planet spinning peacefully below, its cities glowing with the lights of 8 billion people who no longer feared the dark between the stars. "Any regrets?" asked her aide, Commander Jinho, who had also been promoted after his success against the Cavern fleet. "About what?" "The way things turned out. The fear we've created. The changes to galactic civilization.